Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Majestic Collectibles Podcast. This is podcast number 2, January 25th, 2023. Kind of picking up from last week a little bit. I wanted to kind of hone in on a couple of topics when I talked about selling your collection. I'm titling this one How to Value Your Collection. And I want to be upfront with everybody. There is no magic formula, guys. I don't have any concrete answers or magic numbers or way to get to that magic number, if there is one. So just to let you know off the bat, that's not what this is about. This is just kind of something to help you through the process, hopefully help you through the process. I think this is one of the toughest parts of the selling collectibles process for anybody, not just individuals or collectors, but also dealers. Okay, so it's not easy on either side of the equation, and that's what kind of got me going on this. That and the amount of people that are just shocked how hard it is to call up somebody and sell a collection. If you have a lot of stuff, there's, at least here in rural Iowa, everybody wants the cherry on top, but nobody wants to take the rest, which doesn't always help people. If you're trying to make some room, they just took your best stuff and left you with all the leftovers. And we talked about that in the first podcast a little bit, if you remember. And thanks if you did listen to the first podcast, especially if it made it to the end. I know it was a little lengthy. Sorry about that. So back to getting some values for your collection. The number one thing right now that I see, and it's been this way for 10 plus years, probably closer to 20. And that's getting values from eBay. And that's okay. I do that too. But there's a lot of caveats involved with value in your collection based on eBay prices. The first thing I see there is everybody throws asking prices at me. What people are asking, not what they've sold for. So you can't really do anything with that because you can throw on whatever you want on eBay and ask whatever you want. So that's not a good way to do it. So you need to go to the ended listings and look and see what allegedly sold. And I say allegedly for a lot of reasons. One of the biggest problems with most of your online sales sites, well, all of them really, I don't care if it's Comic Base or My Comic Shop or Etsy or whatever, and that's transparency. Okay, one of the big things going around, if you're not familiar with this, you can go onto eBay, go to the sold listings, type in Beanie Babies, and there's allegedly, just a huge number of Beanie Babies that are selling $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. I actually get phone calls at least once a month, sometimes more, but I get phone calls for people, hey, I want to sell my Beanie Baby collection. I saw some of these are worth a lot of money. Are you interested? And no, I'm not, because those aren't legitimate sales. Now, I don't know what they are. You can speculate. I've heard everything from just, money laundering and all these other conspiracy theories. I think mostly it's just people trolling the site and trolling other collectors. I think it's really that simple that, somebody's just going around being a jerk about it. But you don't know, no matter what the thing might say when you're looking, it says sold and completed. You don't know if that money changed hands. You can't prove that. You also can't prove, that there wasn't a problem with it. Maybe it was returned, or maybe it wasn't accurately described. Maybe it wasn't authentic. And these are things you don't hear about. You just see this little green number, when you look in the completed and just think everything's hunky-dory. Just doesn't work that way. And you also have to understand that the market you're in makes a huge difference. So if I'm in LA, I'm in New York, I'm in Dallas, I'm in a major metropolitan area, I'm going to get more money for it than I'm going to get here in Iowa. Okay, if something's selling for $100 out on one of the coast, the east-west coast, doesn't really matter. If it's going for $100 out there, it might be a $75 item here. Okay, which means, well, it means you're not going to get 75 or $100 or even close to it for that matter. So just take that, any online alleged sale that you see, take it with a grain of salt, is all I'm saying on that. You cannot be super hardcore. I know the trading card guys are just pulling their hair out the last 6-8 months. Everybody's running up to them with their cell phone at a show. Here's the comp. Here's the comp. Here's the comp. Here's the comp. Here's the. I mean, they really are tired of hearing that word. So just to let you know. And the problem is, no matter what you see, that's yesterday's news. So, if somebody got a good deal on eBay because it was an auction and not a buy it now, because a lot of the auctions on collectibles don't bring what the buy it now listings do. And that's why I haven't run auctions on eBay for years. It's strictly buy it now because there's a big price difference. But it's still old news. It's what it's going to be worth in the future. And right now we're in a down economy. I got to tell you, if you guys are in the unfortunate position where you're thinking of selling your collection of anything, you're probably got some of the worst timing in the last 15 years to try and sell a collection. There's some exceptions, the precious metals guys, the gold and silver and coin guys, stuff like that. Usually that does a little better in this type of economy. But your trading cards, comics, action figures, what you would think of as modern collectibles, fun stuff, generally does not do well. And the outlook going forward does not give me any indication that it's going to change. I think we hit our peak probably about last July, to be honest with you. Had a little bit of bump right before Christmas, so that was good. But going forward, when eggs are, $7 on the West Coast and $3 to $4 here where I'm at, and we used to grow them. We had the bird flu and had to destroy a lot of animals. But when the food prices, your necessities have doubled, tripled, maybe more, depending where you're at, people don't have time for this stuff, guys. There's nothing I sell that anybody needs to survive anything. And those things, naturally, get cut first. So, again, with your online stuff, transparency is an issue, and don't get caught up too much in yesterday's news, all right? Now, there's some other online resources, and I'm not overly expert on these. I use them once or twice a year, maybe. One is WorthPoint, which I think is really useful. It's a subscription service. I don't know what the cost is, but it does cost some money. But, I only use it for higher end and oddball things. I don't think it's necessarily a great tool for collectibles, for your lower end stuff. Really comes in handy for unique things, higher dollar items. But again, I found, finished things on there are 2 years old. Well, having a 2-year-old completed auction somewhere or a sale somewhere doesn't help. It gives you kind of a general ballpark, maybe, depending on what it is. But, the older the information, the less reliable it is. My comic shop, I get a lot of, feedback because I'm a comic dealer, have been for a really long time. Since before I had a driver's license, actually. And between my comic shop and the comic, what am I trying to think of here? The Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide. That's what I was trying to say. Again, not the most reliable for very similar issues that I mentioned with eBay, with transparency. The printed guide I like to have for the notes. So if I look at a collection, it'll tell you first appearances. It'll tell you artists. It'll give you sometimes, if it's a second, third, fourth printing, stuff like that. It's really handy. Prices always seem to be about 2 years out of date, high and low. Okay, so you can really get in a lot of trouble on both ends using the paper price guide. My comic shop, I think it's really good for some of your lower end stuff, your reader books. You get up into the higher books, the prices seem to kind of, I don't know, there's a lot more variance in there. And again, transparency is something, it makes you wonder when you see a wide variance on, say, a CGC graded 9.8 book or a PSA graded, 9 or 10 trading card. And it went for, X number of dollars here, but it went for 30% less a week or two later. And then it went for, double that in another 3 months. And it's kind of like you got to scratch your head and go, how many of those were real, right? Because that's a lot of volatility. Some other places you can go, TCG Player, and I have used that quite a bit. I liked it. I thought it was one of the better places to find, decent, up-to-date prices on, your trading cards, Magic, Pokemon, whatever. But eBay bought it. I don't know if it's been completed yet. I don't know if that has gone all the way through. It was, I don't know, last quarter or last third of 2022. So I don't know if that's been done. But eBay's buying it. And anytime eBay, if you're a collectibles marketplace and you're buying a price guide, come on, guys. Okay, you gotta think a little bit there. That's a little scary, right? There's some ethical issues along with the transparency issues on that one. And anytime your marketplace is involved in pricing, or your grading companies are involved in pricing, that's a pretty serious bias. They're not incentivized to have lower prices for whatever it is, whether they're grading something or they're just the platform for selling. So again, not, I don't know what to tell you then. Just be careful. Anytime you got special interest involved, it's a little shady, guys. So past versus current versus future economy. Believe it or not, I still have people bringing me collections from the 90s. Well, I mean, things are grossly overproduced in the 90s. But the thing that surprises me most is it's 2023 now, early 2023. But even during COVID, people are still bringing me stuff from the 90s and say, I spent X number of dollars of this in 1997, 8, 9. This is worth this much in 1990. I even get people quoting me Wizard Price Guide prices for comics. And man, that thing hasn't been around for, I don't know how long, a long time. You might as well pick up an old copy of the Wall Street Journal and just look at the stock prices and try and buy and sell them on that basis. It doesn't work. You have to look at two things when you're selling your collection, okay? So, and this is the same for dealers. So I have to look at this too when I'm pricing and trying to resell stuff. I have to look at the current economy, which right now is down, but isn't really bad. Okay, so far it's off probably for me between, the comics and eBay sales, probably down 23 to 25% for 2022. So it could be worse. So it's not great, but I don't really, that's not really a killer. But going forward, I do not expect 2023 to be as good as it was in 2022 or right now in this first quarter of 2023. I think things are going to catch up with people with the layoffs, the prices of things. Things are going to come to a screeching halt, I think, fairly quickly and fairly soon, probably by May at the latest, and quite possibly already by tax time in March and April. And so when I'm buying something, I'm looking at a collection, I'm going, man, am I going to have to sit on this collection for a year, 2 years, 3 years? Is the price going to come back? Because it doesn't always happen. And Beanie Babies is everybody's favorite punching bag on the biggest collectibles bubble in the last 25 years. And there's good reason for that. And I cannot pay you, no dealer can pay you, a reseller can pay for potential. That's not reselling, that's speculating. And that's what kind of got us into this mess with all the card grading and comic grading being backed up and all this other stuff going on. If you got a legit buyer that's got cash, isn't trying to trade, that's worth a lot, guys, especially in a down economy. I don't know who that would be. I always say shop it around, but you got to be aware that nobody's going to be paying you for, what they think prices are going to be in 5 years. A lot of that storage cost, this stuff takes up a lot of space. I'm spending over $200 a month for a climate-controlled storage facility, plus what I have, with my business here. And I just have a limit, to how much I can handle and carry. And I am not going to buy a collection and pay a premium dollar and store it because I can't work with it, because I can't get to it for a year or two or whatever. You're just losing money every month if you're just locking stuff away someplace and paying money to do that, and you can't resell it. So just something to keep in mind there. Pay attention to the news a little bit. I know it's not always great, and it's usually not quite as bad as what they say. But until things stabilize, the volatility goes out, everything's kind of hit the bottom, like with the stock market or whatever, we're not going to see as much activity. Something else for current is what's popular currently. What was popular in 1998 is not necessarily popular now, and I'm going to use Marvel and DC. I mean, Marvel went bankrupt twice in the 90s, and DC was rolling pretty good with some of the Batman movies, although that's a story for another podcast. But right now, I tell you what, DC anything, action figures, comics, boy, it just doesn't matter. I have no interest in them. And I've heard this from other dealers, not just lonesome old me in central Iowa, but the DC product is really, really tough to move. And I'm a huge DC fan, guys. I was never, I read Marvel, but I was never a Marvel zombie. I was never, a Foom, if you guys go back far enough into the 70s, kind of thing. I read them, but I was a big DC guy, especially Batman. And even Batman does not sell as well as I would. Gosh, Batman might sneak into one of the top 10 titles that I sell at shows and conventions and online. But the rest are all Marvel, mainly Spider-Man and Avengers. Now FF's heating up, Ant-Man a little bit. So if you've got a big collection of something, it doesn't matter what it is again. If it's not popular anymore, guys, your options are limited. You might just have to sit on it and hope it comes back, and that doesn't always happen. Something else, with the current situation is how fast it can be resold. And we talked about that a little bit, in dealing with the storage and stuff like that. But if it's something that I just can't resell, or it's a bunch of 50 cent and dollar stuff, I have piles of it. I got boxes and boxes and boxes, and I'm even having trouble wholesaling some of it out. Of course, it's bottom of the barrel stuff, so it's not like it's great stuff. But, it's hard to find a buyer for that, even for me. And if it's a slow sale, that takes a lot of shine off of it, guys. So, if you haven't been collecting for a while, and you have, you've sat on your collection for a while, you don't know what the current market is, might want to do a little research just so you're not blindsided. You know what I'm saying? Like these Beanie Baby guys are coming out of the woodwork based on eBay, alleged eBay sales prices, and they're getting hit by trains, trucks, semis, and meteorites when they try and go sell these things. And it's very confusing and very frustrating, and I get that, and I'm just trying to give you maybe a little more of a what to expect, so check that out. What we're looking for as a reseller is what the next hot thing is. The problem is, how do you know? You don't know how much it's going to go up. And, the rampant speculation for trading cards, sports, CCG, non-sports, comic books, guys, it just was really silly. It was so overboard. And you're going to see those prices retreat off of that silliness, which means, if something went up 40, 50, 60%, you can expect that same thing to probably come down 40, 50, 60% and maybe lower depending on the current economy. And I can't tell you what the next hot thing is. I would love to tell you what the next hot thing is. And if you watch enough YouTube videos, you watch or listen to enough of these podcasts, somebody out there will tell you with 100% certainty what the next hot thing is going to be. And I would say if you bet against them 9 out of 10 times, you're going to win. Okay? And that's part of the big issue when valuing something. When I'm looking at buying a collection, I don't know what I'm going to get out of it, especially if I can't get it sorted and dealt with right away, and I have costs involved in doing that, which I do. So something else that I wanted to talk about just briefly, added this at the end here. I just thought of it before I started broadcasting, and that's appraisals. Every once in a while, 2-3 times a year, somebody will call me up, do you do appraisals? No, I don't do appraisals. There are people that are certified appraisers. I got to tell you right now, they're a complete waste of money. I'm sure the people know what they're doing. But appraisals, you can take it to 10 appraisers, certified or not. You're going to get 10 different valuations, which is frustrating. It's expensive, guys. I mean, I've seen some of these guys charge, anywhere between, $50, $70 an hour up to a couple $100 an hour. And it doesn't help you. If you give me an appraisal for a collection, especially if it's older than about 2 weeks, I don't care. Okay. I still, every now and then I'll get an appraisal in from the 1990s or early 2000s. Well, that's so far out of yesterday's news, it's not even funny. And that's the problem, is the appraisals in this fast-moving, electronic-driven market, they're just not good very long. And don't waste your money on them, guys. And, okay, if you want to get insurance coverage, they make you get an appraisal. Well, you're going to have to keep getting one every so often. It depends on your policy. And you better read your policy if you think you're really going to be covered, because a lot of those collector riders or addendums or side policies, you know what? They don't cover things like flood. They don't cover water damage. They don't cover smoke damage. At some point, you wonder what they cover, okay? And they're very specific. And a lot of times, if they cover what you want it to cover, you got to lock these things up in a vault. You got to have verified security. It has to be in a safety deposit box. It has to be in a vault. It has to be behind 3-inch bulletproof, whatever it is. These insurance companies, all they're going to do is take your appraisal, take it on file, take your money, and then when something happens, they're going to go in with a fine-tooth comb, find out which one of the whatever, qualifications you missed, and you get nothing. Okay? That's how that works. So you can get an appraisal. I guess it's up to you. I would say save your money. And that kind of brings me full circle here. On this particular topic, ultimately, talk to 2 or 3 interested buyers and take the best offer. It's worth what somebody thinks it's worth at that time. If you get an offer from a dealer and you walk away, don't assume that offer is still good, guys. If I come over and I look at a collection and we're not able to get together, and that's fine. That doesn't make me mad. You're not going to buy everything, and I don't want to buy everything. But don't call me a week, a month, 6 months later and say, hey, is that offer still good? So that offer that I made and you've turned it down, that's it. I mean, there's no warranty, there's no guarantee, there's no fresh buy date. That expired when you said no. And that's okay. Again, I'm not trying to whine as a dealer, but you have to understand that if you say no to anybody and you go back and try and get that same offer, if they're interested at all, you would be very, very lucky, be very unusual to have that offer. It's very typical that you're going to get the best offer right there. when you're negotiating. And that's why I suggest you be prepared. Even though you can't really put like a super hard value on it and it's very frustrating, you have to be prepared to pull the trigger or say no. Don't take an offer that you think is terrible. I'm not saying that, but you have to be ready to take that offer at that time or you may not get it again. All right. And in the old days, people would tell me, oh, I'll just sit on it. It'll keep going up. I think that time's done, guys. I don't care what it is. Your key books, your 9.8 Hulk 181s, your AF-15s, that stuff's in a whole different stratosphere. That's not the type of stuff we're talking about. So if you got stuff like that, yeah, I mean, you put it on a national auction or something, there, you get your top dollar out of it. But stuff outside of that, yeah, you whether you realize it or not, you have storage costs, you have opportunity costs. Even if it's sitting in your basement, if it's sitting in your living room, sitting in your attic, you still have to have the time, effort, energy to deal with it. Hopefully you're not paying storage fees on it or some type of fees on it, because that's like a triple whammy at that point. And, that's it. I wish I could give you a magic bullet. I wish I could say, hey, here's the answer to everything when trying to sell your collection. And I know we didn't cover everything on here. There's always nuances depending on what you have to sell and when you're trying to sell it and what you want. We're going to talk about one more thing in podcast 3 next week. I want to sit down and just finish up this selling series in podcast 3, and that's with grading, because grading and pricing, they're intertwined. You can't really separate them. I did for these purposes, just because this is going to be, we'd be here an hour and a half or something for a podcast, and amazingly, I don't even like to talk that long. Hard to believe, I know, Chad, but that's true. So we're gonna finish that up and just kind of talk about that, because that's the two biggest bugaboos I see when trying to close on a deal for a collection, and that's the valuation, where two parties are far apart on the monetary value, and one of the big reasons for this is grading. So we'll pick that up next week. Check out our videos, guys. Got a bunch of new box opening videos. And, of course, if you haven't seen or listened to the first podcast, check that out, too. And thanks for listening.